Hi, I'm Angela. I have a 12-year-old son with epilepsy and cerebral palsy and global developmental delay. Te Whanau Kotahi has been part of my family for quite a long time, with Taine being 12, but mainly in the early years from those preschool years where they were in my home and working with me and encouraging me to, as their words were, I needed to socialise him, so they encouraged me to get him into daycare and kindy and out into the community and supported me in my journey to do that. Yeah, it's that they come into your home, so it's personal. You're not going to a sterilised, to a hospital appointment. So then they become part of your family because they see you raw, if you like. My house wasn't that flash, so I had to actually put that aside and say, come in, this is me. And so you build up a really they become part of the family, really. They become somebody that you trust and that you talk to about not only what's happening with your child, but maybe what's bugging you for the day. And the feed off that, and just somebody like in my situation, being a sole parent, having another adult to have an adult conversation with was really valuable and really important, and it gave me a lot more personal support to reach out and make Taine become what he could become, because they were there encouraging me to do it, which was just fantastic. Yeah, recently I've really gone through a huge challenge with my son, and that was going from primary school to college, which in the area that I live in, we only have one college that we're zoned for, and it's an intermediate college combination. And at first, after going there, I heard all the good stories. They were going to increase his teacher aid time, and it just really felt that it was going to be fabulous. Met with the teacher, the form teacher, and was really excited about this new transition. However, once we got there in the first term, it soon became very apparent that it wasn't going to work. Within 3 weeks of Taine being at the college, barriers started being put up. An example was form time. School started at 20 to 9, and because Taine can't read, his form teacher was like, well, that's silent reading time while I do all my role and my notices, so what is he going to do? And so instead of taking on board some of the things I offered, like the fact that he had an iPad and he had books on his iPad that did sign language, etc. for him, she decided that in the school that he wouldn't start school till 9 o'clock. So I suggested that yes, we would trial that, but I wasn't that happy about it. But then more and more barriers kept getting put in place. The teacher aid was being changed every school period, so Taine wasn't settling and wasn't getting into a routine, and he was coming home incredibly stressed and upset and crying and not wanting to go to school, and the school was ringing me all the time, not knowing what to do, because we'd suddenly had this child who had never had behavioural issues having behavioural issues and being naughty and not complying and not sitting in class, and it was an incredibly stressful situation and quite difficult to know what to do about it, and who to get help from and support from. So for the first time ever, I actually got in contact with an old friend of mine who works in the mental health, and she was a client advocate for Taine in a meeting that I set up with the faculty, the deputy principal and the learning centre SENCO. And she actually wrote verbatim, which was probably the turning point, because they realised that there was somebody else in the room who never said a word apart from saying hello to them, but was writing everything down that they were saying. And some of the things that they were saying were not very nice and quite difficult for me to listen to and respond to. And to give you an example of that is that the learning teacher said to me, and so how many hours does your child have ORRS funding? Which I told them, and they said, oh well, so perhaps you would like to pay for the continued funding yourself, which really threw me 10 left, because being a sole parent, I don't have that sort of funding. Very quickly, however, the Deputy Principal said that that wasn't on the table and we weren't here to discuss that. But that gives you an indication of sort of the attitude that I was coming up against. The very old school, they were very reluctant to change. Taine uses an iPad for a lot of his schooling, and they didn't know how to use an iPad, but I encouraged them to take that home and play with it and just get used to it, and they weren't prepared to do that because they didn't see what they had to work on, after hours in their own time. It got to the point where I thought I was going to have to give up work to deal with the situation, because Taine's behaviour, even at home, was starting to deteriorate out of sheer frustration. So with a lot of help from outside education services, we put together a profile, for want of a better word, of what was happening, a diary timeline of things that were happening in the school. But because we were zoned to go to that school, I had to actually get ministry approval to go out of zone, and so that then whole mile more difficulties and just a nightmare really. But I was determined to do it, even if that meant I had to sell my house and move into a bigger area that had more schools available to me. So then I just went looking, and that's when my eyes were open. And when you go and look and you walk into these schools that provide either satellite units inside the school or learning centres, and I just went without my son and sat in there and watched how they conducted themselves. I actually looked at the other students to see whether they were happy or not, and I really want to say that the school's name, because they've been absolutely outstanding. Taine now goes to Otamotai College in Tauranga, and the special needs unit there has just been fantastic. Open arms. We're in transition to going there because it is a college, but he's happy. He comes home excited with stories. They also had never used an iPad before, but they were really excited about having this new piece of equipment with them, and gladly took it home to have a play. The teachers even confess and say that they had to get their kids to save them because they'd made mistakes, and you know what kids like these days. They grabbed the iPad and showed them how to do it. And yet, total different attitude. They were positive, they were passionate, they were understanding, and they were caring. And now Taine is in a term at Otamotai now, and through this transition period, and I've just had an IEP with them, and one of the words that one of the teachers said, or a sentence the teacher said, is, "Your boys come home," and it really cracked me up. I mean, tears the works, because he's now in an environment that accepts him for who he is, and he's thriving, he's happy, and he's laughing. He's got friends that are encouraging him, and the weight off my shoulders is just amazing. We still live in our little community, so I've still got all my support people around me, which we all know is so important. I know that he, off he goes to school in the morning, and I can actually feel that I'm relaxed, and it's just, it's fantastic. One of the things I learnt from the experience of the school challenge was that I was so busy in the beginning not wanting to offend people and upset, and I suppose we want a piece of the cake, but we'll take the crumbs. We're grateful for the crumbs, and if you speak out, you're scared you're going to lose those crumbs. So we say, what are we going to get? Don't be frightened to go above and outside, which is where I ended up. Go to those people, and if it means going to the Ministry of Education, then that's where you go, to someone who's actually going to listen to you and to what's happening, and take people with you who can back you up. And by that I mean, one of my teacher aides was, appalled at what was happening, and spoke on Taine's behalf as well as other families that had moved forward with us to the college. So, don't give up. You just need to find the right person, and sometimes that right person is right in front of you, but you haven't for stress and not looking, take the shades down and just look around you and see who's there quietly supporting you that actually has a voice, and go for it. Grab them, talk to them, email them, whatever you're comfortable with, but at the end of the day, just keep on pushing, keep a positive attitude. I really found that don't go in negatively, go in, how can you help me? I need help, how can you help me? You're asking them a question which means you want an answer from them, and sometimes it's not the answer that you want to hear, but they may tell you this person can help you or point you in the direction that you need to go, and sometimes that's what you need to do. And the client advocate that I brought in, who as I said was a long time friend of mine, was exactly that person, and I don't know why it took me so long to reach out to her and say, hey, I need help. And she gladly stepped up, and really she was just that voice in the background who, guiding hands, if you like, on me and pointed me in the right direction to go, and gave me the encouragement to do it. And that's what we need. And as parents, that's what we need to do for each other, is support each other and encourage you to just keep pushing. Push those barriers down. That person doesn't work, then go to the next person that is going to help you. And ask, talk to other parents. What did you do? How did you get around this situation? Because we've all got stories that we can share that will help somebody else, and if my experience with the school issue can help anyone else, then they don't have to go through what I went through, then this is worth it. So just ask for help, and if you get turned down on one sector, turn and go the other way, and just don't give up. All right.
So you gave up the crumbs. What did you get in return?
I got the cake and the icing with a cherry on top.